what you wanted. I wish that I could change what you wanted. I wish that I could change what you wanted. I wish that I could change what you wanted. I wish that I could change what you wanted. I wish that I could change what you wanted. Why we always looking for more? Why we always looking for more? Been trying to change what I've been trying to say. Words don't come straight from my head to my mouth. It's such a shame that it fell out of place. Was never me that was bringing you down.
Warning. The Duracell Cup Series data file you have attempted to access is out of date. Uploading current file now.
It's a brand new car from stem to stern, and it's never been raced at these speeds.
The next gen car is opportunity.
Everything is different with the exception of like the seat, the steering wheel, and your helmet.
Unknown creates excitement.
Talking about my generation.
Two races left until we crown ourselves a champion here in Season 6 of the NNSCRA Duracell Cup Series, and the place that sets the table for it all is here today at the North Carolina Speedway, more lovingly known as Rockingham Speedway, in preparation for race number 35, the final race of the third and final round of the playoffs. After today, we will know who is moving on from the round of 8 to be the final 4 to compete for the championship next week at Michigan International Speedway. Some drivers look like they may have made already a case for themselves to get locked in, but there's a couple of drivers that are coming into today's race, some grizzled veterans that are in must-win situations. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Seth Cole, and we're getting set for 79 laps of racing at this historic racetrack. So far this round, we've been at Boston, which was kind of a bit of a survival fest for some drivers. We had good long green flag run, had some pit strategy play out, but it definitely set us up for an interesting scenario at Talladega in which we went completely green flag. We saw a couple of rounds of pit stops. We ended up seeing another rookie added to the list of those that have taken checkered flags this season, but both races have been interesting in their own capacity, but I think that here today is going to be the creme de la creme. If you're going to make it into that Final Four, you have to be completely on your game because Rockingham will get you in more ways than one. Rockingham, it's really a couple of facets that people don't necessarily think about Rockingham. Number one is it is a tire shredder. This is going to be a race of tire conservation, setting up your car for the long run, making sure you don't overstep it on the exit of the corner, don't get back to the throttle too soon because that outside wall kind of creeps up on you off corner exit a lot quicker than one would expect. Kind of think about Phoenix and Dover, those type of racetracks where it ends up that the car will tighten up on you as that right front tire heat kicks up and the wear starts to kick in. You have to back up your corner. You have to be a lot more gentle on the throttle when you are trying to make your way out of 2 and out of 4. Another thing that people don't necessarily know about Rockingham is this is not exactly a cookie cutter racetrack. Turns 3 and 4 are entirely different than turns 1 and 2. 3 and 4 are the fastest area of the racetrack. You can almost at sometimes on fresh tires take those corners completely full throttle if you've got clean racetrack ahead of you. Of course, if you got traffic, you got to adhere for where those drivers are. But 1 and 2 are really the technical portions of this racetrack. A little bit more of a braking zone going into turn 1, kind of similarize it, I guess, to 3 and 4 at Darlington in a way. It's a little bit more narrow. A lot of drivers like to be able to drive it in deep, let the car ride up in through the center, and then diamond it off the corner. Of course, as well, though, when you're in traffic, you don't necessarily have that luxury. And one thing you're going to see here today that you normally don't see at a lot of your speedway racetracks is drivers taking a defensive line down the back straightaway. More often than not, we'll see drivers when they slide up off of turn 2, they right up there right against the wall. They may move down to the inside when they're making a pass on somebody, but today you're going to see drivers dive it down there to that inside line for that inside entry into turn 3 to make sure they don't get caught out going into turn 3. They're going to actually take a defensive line and throw blocks down that back straightaway. So something that drivers are going to have to keep in mind here today is if you're going to make a pass for position, you might have to do it on the top side. And that actually did happen for the race win back in Season 1. Jay Jefferson made the pass around the outside to pick up the victory. I'm trying to recall who it was he made the pass on. It might have been Diego Yepes, his teammate at the time, but I can't recall 100% on who it was. But it has happened in the past, and it may happen again here today. All right, let's take a look at the playoffs coming into this because you want to know what the scenario looks like. And really, at this point in time, it is a 6-horse race for 4 spots. You've got 13 points separating 1st through 6th position. Those spots could fluctuate during the course of this race. Mitchell Collins had a decent run last week. He, along with Charles Sanford, were the only ones that really finished up inside of the lead pack at Talladega. But they only are 4 and 2 points respectively ahead of the cut line driver, which is Keith Batson. Jack Donner's only 2 points to the good as well. Laura Chung, -5 behind the cut line. And Destin Bolin, the 3-time winner, is only 9 points behind the cut line. Michael Norman and the defending champion Kyle Matthews, though, they have a taller task today. They both suffered poor performances at Boston and Talladega. Kyle Matthews with the engine failure last week at Talladega, putting him in the must-win situation. Michael Norman, his DNF back at Boston, putting him in the must-win situation. Both those drivers, there's no way mathematically they can make their way up inside of the top 4 in point standings. They have to win if they are going to go to Michigan and compete for the championship. Now, Michael Norman lines up on the pole position here today. Don't know if this is necessarily going to be a race of track position or not, but he's got himself pretty good starting track position there on the pole, and Kyle Matthews is up inside the top 15. He's going to roll off the grid in the 13th spot. So both of them definitely know how to get around Rockingham. They've been in this series since Season 1. They've been here in the previous 5 seasons, so we'll see. We'll see what happens here with these drivers today. If I recall correctly, I believe Michael Norman and Kyle Matthews did not start the Rockingham race last year. Both of them were, Kyle Matthews was the primary driver, so he would have been at Talladega, and Michael Norman, he was, I believe, the Tri-Terry driver, so he would have been at then Homestead Miami Speedway, which would have been next week, but it got replaced with Michigan. So neither one of the drivers, I do believe, took the green flag here at Rockingham back last season, but they've been in seasons 1 through 4 starts here at Rockingham Raceway, still have that experience under their belt. We'll see if it puts them in good stead here today. Let's go down trackside. Let's get those most famous words in motorsports, and let's get ready to go racing and determine our final 4 here today at Rockingham Speedway.
Drivers, start your engines!
Starting grid will scroll on the right side of your screen for one final time this year. You will see 8 playoff drivers highlighted in yellow. It's been a while, but for the first time this season, we are going to, in a long time, we're going to be having a first-time winner here at Rockingham. All 5 previous race winners not in the field here today. This was the venue for 2 drivers on the list getting their first career victories. Jay Jefferson back in Season 1, and Andrea Serra last year driving for Shadow Cult Racing put the number 99 Ford Mustang in victory circle. Levi McIntyre will look to put the 99 in victory lane in back-to-back seasons, but he's starting mid-pack in 22nd place. Speaking of 22, it's the number 22 of Michael Norman. Needs to win to advance into the championship battle next week. He will lead Dylan Pote with the front row down to the start-finish line. Green flags in the air, and we are racing at the Rock. Not expect a super fast-paced race here, as obviously, as mentioned, this is a tire shredder, so drivers will be trying to prepare for the long run. Saw a car back in the wall there off of 2 that appeared to be the 27 of Joshua Osborne. He came down to Levi McIntyre, but looks like they all gathered it up, kept it pointed straight, so we stay green, and Michael Norman will lead lap number 1. Destin Bolin going to move into 2nd spot. Destin behind the cut line, 9 points back. There you see that defensive line I was talking about. He got a good run off of 2, but Michael Norman held it down on the inside, down low off the back straightaway. Make sure Destin, with that run, could not make a move into turn 3. Chris Dollerton has moved into 3rd, and Laura Chung right now in the 4th position. Chung and Bolin, the first 2 drivers below the cut line coming into this race. Both rookies trying to make it into the playoffs, final 4 to compete for the championship. Ryan Brommer right now, 2 Auto Junction Racing Toyotas up the side of the top 5. And remember, I mentioned Kyle Matthews started 13th. He's already up to 6th. So Matthews is a man on a mission. Bringing Matt Haas in the 8 along with him. Jose Mills in the 38. Time is running out for Jose Mills to get a victory this season. Michael Norman must have had a very good turn too, because now the battle is more for 2nd place than it is for the race lead. Destin Bolin falling back there to Chris Dollerton, but you saw right there, I mentioned it's almost full throttle through 3 and 4 in the opening stages. The draft comes into play, and Destin Bolin closed up on Michael Norman for the race lead. 3rd place battle, Chung. You're going to make passes here. You're going to more than likely have to make them around the outside, especially in the late going, middle to late going. Everybody's going to be hugging the bottom. Let's look at that 38 of Jose Mills you see up there on the top side. Is he making up any ground, or is he losing ground? Matt Haas just kicked up to the outside there by Zachary Fitzwater. I guess the inside line's actually working over in 3 and 4, but definitely doesn't work through 1 and 2. And I believe we're under caution. Yes, we are. Yellow flag out for the first time today. Benjamin Snyder coming off of pit road. I saw him get the wall when they were 3 wide. I think Charles Sanford was the car in the middle. One of our playoff drivers. Looks like it was turn 3 where this occurred. Was it the 74 that maybe ended up bringing out this first caution? I think he was on pit lane though, so we'll cycle through the back end of the field here. I don't see any visible damage on anyone. Might have been one of those harmless spins, but we'll find out in just a moment. Pit road was open. Nobody came to pit lane. The tires have to be worn already, I would think. Not certain about lap times at this point in time because we're under pacing, so I can't make any comparison. Well, let's go back and take a look at what brought out the caution. Got a couple of cars coming to pit lane. Quentin Moore, Benjamin Miles, Levi McIntyre, and Noah Hendrickson, drivers towards the tail end of the pack. We'll see if any of them might have been the reason for this caution. And, yeah, looks like quite a few of them, actually. I believe it starts with the 25 of Benjamin Miles. Jack Dunnard, playoff driver in the middle of this, though he got through relatively unscathed. Cody Lamas got a piece. Here's Hendrickson, Moore. And we mentioned Levi McIntyre, so about 5 cars caught up in this one. Jack Dunnard was right behind that. He got a little bit of contact with the left and right fronts, but I think he got relatively through unscathed. Let's go on board. This is third in points, only 2 points ahead of the cut line, Jack Dunnard. That's his teammate there in the 25 that was to his inside, just kind of got crowded in. And had he sustained a lot of damage, that could have very easily been championship hopes over for Jack Dunnard. He got very lucky in that incident. It was back around the 25th position where all of that went down. Lights are still on atop the Toyota Camry TRD pace car. Michael Norman, Destin Bolin, and Chris Dollerton will be the first 3 Mustangs to lead us back to green. Then it's the Toyotas of Laura Chung, Ryan Brommer completing the top 5. Then the Chevrolets of Kyle Matthews in 6th, Zachary Fitzwater in 7th. Then Matt Haas, Nathan Norman, Jesse Turner. That's going to be your top 10 when we go back green. It would appear that all the drivers that came to pit road, Hendrickson, McIntyre, Miles, Moore, have all left pit lane. They will still remain on the lead lap after working our first caution of the day. Lights out atop the pace car, so we're going back green this time. Remember, folks, next week, last 5 seasons, we have gone and crowned our champion, or in last year's season's case, champions, at Homestead Miami Speedway. But for the very first time, Homestead got replaced as the season finale. We're going to Michigan International Speedway to determine the championship. None of the Elite 8 in the first 2 races at Boston or Talladega locked themselves in to that Final 4. So even if we end up having one of our playoff drivers go to victory lane here today, we are guaranteed 3 drivers will at least point their way into the Final 4 next week. Laura Chung, Destin Bolin right now running in 4th and 2nd respectively. The driver that they are gunning for right now would be Keith Batson, though Jack Dunner, Charles Sanford, if either one of them have a bad day, they could easily knock them out of the top 4, and same for Mitchell Collins. There was only 4 point separation from 1st to 4th in the playoff standings coming into this one, with Chung 5 back and Bolin 9 back. But Chung, very bad restart for her. She almost was brushing the wall there through the entirety of 1 and 2. Might have been trying to jump there on the outside of Chris Dollerton. Looks like Ryan Brommer is going to be a good teammate and let her back in. As Bolin looking for the lead, first time today, and caution's back out. But Destin Bolin's going to take the top spot from Michael Norman. That's our first lead change. It takes place on lap 10. And let's see what this caution flag was for. Looks like something off of turn 2 onto the back straightaway. And there's a lot more damage on the front end of the 74 of Benjamin Snyder. I also noticed playoff driver Keith Batson back here, and he's got right side damage. So we've had 2 cautions here in the early going, and 2 playoff drivers have been in the vicinity of both of them. Dunnard in the first one and Batson here in the second one, and Snyder's evening is done already. Just a little over 10 laps in. Let's take a look and see what happened to the Live Reality Games Ford, as this did not start with him. I believe this is going to involve Austin LaPlante, who's going to get some help from the 39 of Keith Batson. Oh, look at the 65 of Rob Evans up on the outside, though. Oh, that's what happened there. And then he comes down to Daniel Voiles. sweeps up the 39 and the 65, and then I think it's Snyder that clobbers the 39 of Keith Batson. So he got right side and rear damage on that Motorcraft Ford Mustang. This is the furthest Keith Batson has ever made it in the playoffs. Let's take a look here at just how significant the damage was. Evans in the wall, down into Voiles, and oh! Alright, so correction, we didn't see it. It was off on the side, so I thought Batson was the one that got hit by Benjamin Snyder. It was actually Rick Johnson that got into the side of Keith Batson, and then he's the one, Rick Johnson, that got hit by the 74. Levi McIntyre also got a piece of it there. So let's focus on the 93. See if we can get a different camera angle here as well. Nope, that's not going to work. Wreck's already in progress. There's the contact between the 39 and the 93, and look how the 74 jumps up in the air. That was heavy impact. Benjamin Miles got a tiny piece of it as well. Ooh, and then they split them there. Did Voiles and Evans. So caution out for the second time today, and we're going to have to update on that 39 of Keith Batson, see if he's going to be up to speed. Pit road was open, and it does not appear that Keith came down pit lane, though he's running in 39th. I'm not sure why you wouldn't try and get some of that repaired. Rockingham's not exactly an aerodynamics track, but there is a little bit of draft that comes into play, and we saw earlier when Destin Bolin was able to utilize the draft through 3 and 4 to close up on Michael Norman by about 2 car lengths. So I would think you'd want to have that Ford Mustang aerodynamically sound, but Keith Batson came into this race the cut-line driver. Cut-line drivers have actually done really well in the elimination races. Jack Dunnard was the cut-line driver, I believe, back at our first elimination race at Nashville. And then, or no, I'm sorry, that was Quentin Moore, actually. That was the cut-line driver at Nashville. And then I think it was Destin Bolin was the cut-line driver in our second elimination race at Arizona. And both managed to move on to the next round of the playoffs in those cut-line capacities, if you will. But Keith Batson's going to need a lot to go his way now, as with a lot of loss of track position. He's going to restart back in 40th place, it would appear. Destin Bolin took the lead away from Michael Norman. He'll be the one to lead us back to green on lap 15. Norman will line up second, Chris Dollerton third. Then Laura Chung and Ryan Brommer, your top 5. Fitzwater, Haas, Turner, Matthews, and Banks, last week's winner from Talladega, will complete the top 10. I was just looking at the situation there with Kyle Matthews and Michael Norman and Keith Batson being at the very back of the pack. Would there be a possibility for them to be able to point their way in if he finishes back there? But you got to remember, too, Laura Chung and Destin Bolin are ahead of them, so it'd be one of those two drivers that would take advantage of Keith Batson's misfortune before Norman or Matthews would be able to. And Michael Norman and Laura Chung and Kyle Matthews all up into the wall there, and they're going to lose spots as a result there through 1 and 2. Michael Norman started on pole, led the first 9 laps, but he's going to drop back to third. His teammate Chris Dollerton is going to pass him for second place. Ryan Brommer moves up to fourth as Laura Chung makes a departure all the way back to now 11th, and under fire from Anthony McCrory for that position. Kyle Matthews just dropped outside of the top 15, I do believe. Actually just dropped back to 15th. He'll try and tuck in line here behind his teammate Charles Sanford. Sanford now up to 14th place. Only 2 points above the cut line coming into this race. Now we've yet to see Mitchell Collins up here. There he is. He's back in the 20th spot right now. Jack Dunnard currently in 22nd. Nathan Orman trying to make a move here as Michael Norman is going backwards in a hurry. Brommer got around him, Fitzwater got around him, Matt Haas, Jesse Turner, and now Nathan Orman all looking to take advantage. Ryan Brommer's now gotten kicked up to the outside line. Fitzwater who is looking like he is going to very easily be the Season 6 Duracell Cup Series Rookie of the Year. Moving by into the 3rd spot, and Haas will move to 4th. Fitzwater coming into this race 14 points over Laura Chung in the rookie standings. Very unlikely that he is going to lose that lead, so a bit preemptive, but congratulations to Zachary Fitzwater, Rookie of the Year here for Duracell Cup Series competition. Chris Dollerton trying to get away from Fitzwater and Matt Haas, trying to close in on Destin Boland for the race lead. Destin Boland trying to ensure that he's going to battle for the championship next week, looking for his 4th win on the season, which would tie him only with Nick Gunther. Dollerton got shuffled out of line. Fitzwater going to move into 2nd, and that group is closing in on Destin Boland. Destin ran a 28.1 last time by. Fitzwater ran a 27.8. That's 0.3 of a second faster. And you can visibly see the gap is closing. Oh, we had a wreck. No caution, though. Someone spun off of turn 4 and has subsequently also spun up into turn 1. But the green lights are still on around the racetrack. The green flag is still out. So whatever happened, we'll try and show you courtesy of the NSCRA split cam, but it looks like it might have been Quentin Moore. Might have gotten turned off of turn 4, spun through the infield grass, and slid back up the track into turn 1. But no yellow flag, as apparently race officials deemed it was off the racing surface and not warranting of a caution. Tough break there for the rookie out of Joanna Atwood Motorsports as he's making an unscheduled pit stop. Rick Johnson is also currently being scored a lap down in the 93. Not certain if he lost that lap, maybe getting damage repaired on pit road under the last caution period. I did not see him get lapped here under green flag conditions, unless he was also on pit road potentially here when we went back green flag racing. Well, Destin Boland looks behind him and sees a lot of drivers that don't care that he's a playoff contender. They want to pick up either their 1st or 2nd win on the season. Zachary Fitzwater, former winner Indianapolis, Matt Haas, former winner at Chatham. Then behind them, you've got Jesse Turner and Nathan Ormond, who are both looking for their 1st wins on the season. Ford has won the last 2 races here at Rockingham with Michael Wayne Robinson, who was then driving the 93 for KB Racing Enterprises, and Andrea Serra, who we've already documented, was driving the 99 for Shadow Cult Racing last year. Chevrolet has 2 victories here with Jay Jefferson and Charles Belding, and Toyota has 1 with Benny Watson. Quentin Moore's returned back to the track. Appears that he is possibly still up to speed, but not 100% certain about that, as notice Laura Chung's making her way back up to the front, following in the tire tracks of Jose Mills. Right now Chung in 8th, and now about to take 7th as she gets by the 22. Nathan Ormond looking for 3rd on Matt Haas. Haas gonna on that top side get a nice run there through the center of the corner. Can he draw alongside of Zachary Fitzwater down the back straightaway? Doesn't look like he's quite there. He's clear to come down. Well, he was clear to come down on Nathan Ormond, but Ormond drove it deep there into turn 3, and now Matt Haas is going to get caught out for 3rd and maybe 4th. That's Fitzwater all over the back of Destin Boland. Where can he make his move? Looks like you kind of want to make it over there into turn 3. Let's see if Destin Boland drives the defensive line down low on the back straightaway. Well, might not have to. Fitzwater had to bail through the center of the corner, lost momentum off of turn 2, and about a car length and a half, 2 car lengths, the gap between the 12 and the 66. Bit of a gap from Michael Norman, who's in the 8th position, back to 9th place Ryan Brommer. There you see that said gap. Reese Banks, Charles Sanford, playoff driver right there. How about Mitchell Collins as well? Sanford has worked his way up to 11th. Collins is in 14th. Kyle Matthews in a must-win situation right now behind his teammate. He's back in 17th. Jack Donard is mired back in 24th. That's not where he needs to be. Ooh, he nearly just wrecked Ryan Butcher. I think there definitely was contact between his right front and Butcher's left rear. We're looking for Keith Batson. He's back here in 37th. Levi McIntyre, Austin LaPlante look like they're off the pace. Rick Johnson missing a rear bumper off the pace there. Keith Batson's in trouble. Now, I say that, but let's also remember back, which race was it? It was Arizona, where Laura Chung looked like she was going to maybe be eliminated out of the playoffs. She was running around 20th, 25th position most of the race. We had those late race green flag pit stops, and Laura Chung was able to finish up inside the top 15 and 15th place in order to be able to move on to the round of 8. Keith Batson has been to pit road to get damage repaired, according to my telemetry, and so he would be able to stay out about, what, 10 laps longer than anybody else that did not come to pit road here under these first 2 cautions. As a matter of fact, I believe the highest running driver right now that has been to pit lane is Mitchell Collins. Collins actually has made a pit stop, and he is up in the 15th position. Other drivers that have been on pit road in these first 30 laps include Benjamin Miles and Cody Lamas, Rob Evans, Dylan Young, Levi McIntyre, Keith Batson, Rick Johnson, and Quentin Moore. So they would conceivably be able to go further than Destin Bolin and company, who have not been to pit road the entirety of this race so far. So, if you kind of look at it in that regard, Keith Batson, when these drivers all come to pit road, which I'm assuming they're going to have to, don't know if it's going to be a one-stop race for them or not, but Keith Batson, one could conceivably think, would be able to make it the rest of the way on one more pit stop. Oh, Fitzwater had a nice run there through 1 and 2, but Destin Bolin going to run that defensive line. Fitzwater wanted to drive it in deep there into turn 3, but Bolin's going to hold him up, and he's got these drivers all stacked up behind him as a result. Look at this, Michael Norman working his way back up towards the front. He's going to catch out Laura Chung. That'll be for 3rd. Not able to get to the inside of Laura Chung here through 1 and 2. Chung going to try and hold off Michael Norman. Oh, she's leaving the door open here, though, going into 3. She's got to get low, got to get that defensive line, and she will, well, she's going to run high there. Destin Bolin ran the middle that time through 3 and 4, and look at the gap he was able to open up. Fitzwater was right down on the yellow line. So maybe as these tires are starting to wear, that bottom line through 3 and 4 is not necessarily preferred. Still got a big gap here. Your top 8 back to 9th place, Ryan Brommer. So these drivers right now, they're hoping for potentially a caution to be able to bunch back up. Great run following up his win last week for Reese Banks. With his victory last week, though, Reese Banks did not move anywhere in the point standings. He is still 41st in points. He is 19 points behind the next driver ahead of him in standings, which is 40th place Cody Lamas. That just shows you what a struggling year that 44 team out of Lake Effect Autosport has had, based on the fact that a victory doesn't even pick him up a spot or 2 in overall standings. Battle may be for 2nd. Michael Norman closing in on Zachary Fitzwater. Jesse Turner has been kicked up to the outside line. He's going to drift back, losing 4th to Matt Haas. Now he and Jose Mills will duke it out for 5th place. Now we've ended up having 8 caution laps with 2 early yellows. We have to factor that in. These drivers, I would assume, would be looking at lap 40 before they would end up making a green flag pit stop. That would then say to me they could potentially make it the rest of the way. Midway through lap 39 would be the completion of halfway. Wow, that looked really sketch right there. Bumper to bumper to bumper, 66, 22, and 8 through 3 and 4. And you can see, watch these drivers as they're bumping up and down. This is a very old track surface here at Rockingham Speedway. Very abrasive. And very difficult on the kidneys. It's not a smooth ride. Michael Norman looks like he's going to get second place. Now he sets his sights back on Destin Bolin. Michael Norman and Destin Bolin, the only two drivers that have led so far today. Michael led the first 9 laps. Destin Bolin has led the last 29. Let's go on board with the Pizza Hut Ford Mustang and listen to how, into this long green flag run, how you have to make your way around the North Carolina Speedway. Michael Norman is there, and we're having pit stops. Fitzwater's going to stay out an extra lap, but most of your leaders all came to pit road. Bolin, Norman, Turner, Haas, Nathan Ormond, Laura Chung, Jose Mills, all on the pit lane. Who elected to stay out? Fitzwater, Lamas, Miles, Hendrickson. Now, I believe the 66 is the only driver of those that have stayed out that had not previously made a pit stop. Cody Lamas and company, remember, they can go another 10 laps before they have to pit. And Cody's going to take the race lead as a result. But you saw when we were on board with Michael Norman, he closed right up to the back bumper of the 12 of Destin Bolin, and Michael Norman has the #1 pit stall, so we'll see how that translates between those two once that green flag pit stop cycle is over. Fitzwater got a bonus point for a lap led. Cody Lamas about to get a bonus point as well. So it looks like Cody Lamas, Benjamin Miles, Noah Hendrickson, Rob Evans, Keith Batson, now up to 5th. Ali Liera, Dylan Young, and Levi McIntyre. Those were the drivers that can still go a little bit further since they made a previous pit stop. But they are going to have to pit somewhere in the next, I would say, 8 to 10 laps. Keith Batson would love a caution right now, I guarantee you of that. He's currently in the 5th position, actually correction 6th. Now Hendrickson is in. Ali Liera going to make her way around. Destin Bolin actually, even after his pit stop, he's here with the tail end of this group. And it looks like Charles Sanford might have had a really good pit stop. Zachary Fitzwater going to bypass him, though, so that would potentially end up being for 2nd. Michael Norman ended up having a very slow pit stop. He's going to drop back to, right now, 12th place. That should cycle him to 4th, I do believe, once all these other drivers come to pit road. 66 and 03 duking it out for what will eventually be 2nd place, and Destin Bolin is trapped on the top side here of Keith Batson and Ali Liera. Look at Charles Sanford in the 03. Look at him going to the bottom. Could this be the battle potentially for the race lead? Bolin's going to be able to get around the outside, though, of the 16 car. And now Charles Sanford is kind of caught out. Now he's got to make his way through traffic. Here comes Michael Norman. He's going to try and swing around the outside of Charles Sanford. I believe he's going to get that pass made. Now going to try and clear Batson, going to try and clear Liera, and then he's got Caleb Fogler up ahead he'll have to deal with. Remember, a lot of these drivers, though, are going to be coming to pit lane. Jesse Turner is going to move around Charles Sanford up to 3rd place. It's going to be the 12 versus the 22, it looks like, once again, as Cody Lamas still yet to come to pit lane. Continuing to show the way, hoping that a caution will come out. Right now, you've got all but your top 6, I believe, that are a lap down. So imagine if the caution came out, just how the race officials would have to figure it all out on who is where. Cody continuing to lead laps here. Destin Bolin is right now the first car 1 lap down in 7th place. Michael Norman in 8th. Actually, they're showing him in 9th. Trying to figure out who would be 8th then. Oh, Caleb Fogler's actually up here. My error. Caleb Fogler had a really good pit stop. I thought he was actually on the tail end of the lead lap, but Fogler is up here mixing it up with Jesse Turner, Michael Norman, and Destin Bolin. And here's your battle for the race lead as Destin going to get held up behind Austin LaPlante. Destin going to drive it in deep, but LaPlante's down there as well. Can Bolin get around the 48? Yes, he can. Michael Norman's going to cross down to the inside, but here comes Caleb Fogler. Caleb Fogler, former winner this season, picked up the victory back at, where was it? Boston, I believe? It's Boston or Arizona. I'm trying to remember which one of the two. And now Cody's coming to pit road. So now it's Bolin versus Norman versus Fogler. Zachary Fitzwater is going to move into 4th, passing Jesse Turner. Turner will be in 5th. We're still waiting on the, I guess the 48 has actually already been to pit road. Most everybody else that had to make a pit stop here have come to pit lane. Lamas and Liera and Batson and Young. So now Destin Bolin trying to lock himself into the playoffs with a victory. He doesn't need the victory to lock himself in, with Keith Batson running where he's at. Jack Donard could very easily move up into the top 4. But if Michael Norman wins, then there's a possibility that Destin Bolin, even if he were able to point his way in, Michael Norman's win would knock him out. So this is going to be a good fight between the 12 and the 22. And then you've got Caleb Fogler, the X Factor there, looking for his 2nd win of the season, 2nd win of his career. One of the co-defending champions of the series coming into this season. Let's look at lap times here, as there's still a long ways to go in this race. There's still 27 laps remaining. But Bolin ran a 27.351 last time by. Michael Norman a 27.535, but it looks like he's closing here, though, this time around. Let's take a look at lap times. It was 0.2 of a second last time to Destin Bolin. This time it is 0.3 of a second advantage Michael Norman. He just ran his fastest lap of the race, did Michael Norman, at a 27.168. And look at the run. He's going to get to the inside of Destin Bolin, it looks like here, down the back straightaway. Bolin did not throw the defensive line, and Michael Norman is going to maybe go back to the race lead. Destin's going to battle back on the top. I think Michael's got him here, though, in turn 1. That inside line's been more preferred here into turn 1. And Michael is clear. Back to the point. Well, it took Michael about 44 laps before he eventually got the race lead back from Destin Bolin, but he is back out in clean air. There is traffic up ahead. Ali Liera, Keith Batson, and Dylan Young that they will probably have to deal with. But Michael Norman trying to see if he can lock himself into the Final 4 with his 2nd win on the season. Destin Bolin's not going to go away quietly, though. He'll try and reel him back in. Fogler, Jesse Turner, and Zachary Fitzwater, they're within striking distance as well if either of these two make a mistake. Cole Deaver is right now in 6th. Kyle Matthews in 7th. They're trying to get up there. Kyle Matthews in a must-win situation here in this race. If they catch that traffic, those top 5, these drivers might still have a chance. Jack Donard, how about that 88 car? I think we're definitely going to have a rookie in the Final 4, and I think it's going to be the Northeast Motorsports representative. That team has been unbelievable here in the playoffs. He's right now in the 8th spot. Chris Dollerton in 9th, and you got another Northeast Motorsports car up here. How about the rookie Reggie Fogelman? He is in the 10th position. 11th is where you find Nick Gunther, the only 4-time winner on the season. RJ Bishop right now in 12th. Nathan Orman 13th. 14th place is now going to be Jose Mills. And 15th looks like it's going to be Laura Chung as Matt Haas got kicked up the outside line. There is some right side damage on that 77. We saw her up into the wall earlier on that second restart. Question is, for Laura Chung running in the 16th position, is that enough for her to make her way into the Final 4? With Michael Norman out in front, Laura Chung now has to focus, I do believe, on Charles Sanford and Mitchell Collins. She was 7 points behind Sanford and 9 points behind Mitchell Collins. So she needs Charles Sanford to be running in 23rd or worse. Right now, Sanford is in 21st. She needs Collins to be running in... Let's see, where is she again? She's in 15th. She needs Collins to be running in 25th place or worse. And Mitchell is in 28th. Right now, Mitchell Collins would be outside of the playoffs, along with Keith Batson. Michael Norman and Laura Chung would be in, if my live scoring in my head is correct. LaPlante, I believe, was just on pit road, along with Quentin Moore. Those two way off the sequence of everybody else. As Michael Norman is going to be playing a lot of defense here against Destin Boland. So, as of right now, with the 22 out in front, your final 4 drivers, if my calculations are correct, would be Norman, Dunnard, Sanford, and Chung. If Destin Boland bypasses Michael Norman and wins this race, then it would be Sanford, Dunnard, Chung, and Boland. That would be the final 4. And that's, again, provided Mitchell Collins doesn't make his way up into the top 20. If he does, then more than likely Laura Chung will not advance and Collins will be in. I think it's basically, at this point in time, a given that Keith Batson, unless these drivers end up having to pit in these final 16 or some odd laps, Batson will more than likely not be advancing into the final 4 after his early hardship. He is right now the last car on the lead lap in 37th place. But again, we don't know. These drivers might have to pit. And if they do, Keith Batson, we know, can go about 7-8 laps further than everybody else. And he was up inside the top 5 during that green flag pit stop cycle before he eventually then had to hit pit road. So if pit road does come into play once more in the closing stages, it could work out in the favor of driver 39. We just have to wait and see. The math doesn't check out that these drivers up here at the front would be short on fuel. But then again, you never know. Michael Norman setting some really good lap times right now. Just ran a 28.2 to the 28.3, or 29.0 I should say, of Destin Boland. Holy cow, that's 0.8 of a second difference. Granted, Destin's battling right now with Austin LaPlante, who has fresher tires. Zachary Fitzwater is starting to close in on Destin Boland for that second spot. So Michael Norman just picking him up and laying him down here in terms of lap times. Fastest lap of the race. How about Cole Deaver? 26.871. You compare that to Michael Norman, his fastest lap was a 27.168. That's almost 0.3 of a second faster than Michael Norman's fastest lap for Cole Deaver. And Cole's got a fast race car. He's right now in the 6th position, trying to get up there in the vicinity of the top 5, who are dealing with a bit of traffic. And if they continue to deal with traffic, maybe, just maybe, Deaver and Kyle Matthews and Reggie Fogelman, Jack Dunnard, they'll have a chance of getting up here. Here's a look at fresh tires versus old tires. Watch the 48 of Austin LaPlante as he closes in here on the 22 of Michael Norman. He quickly dispersed of Destin Boland. And look how he's reeled the 22 in. Michael Norman, I think his best choice is to just yield to the 48 here. You don't want to be caught battling and get reeled back in. And there you can see it. Look at that. Look at the run Austin LaPlante gets there on the top side. And he's gone off of turn 2. Boland is now falling back into the clutches of Fitzwater, Turner, and Fogler. Michael Norman, right now, last time by, 2.2 seconds over Destin Boland. I think Boland has fallen off. If Fitzwater gets around the 12, the question is, how good a car does he have? Can he reel Michael Norman in? Can he set the lap times? Same for Turner, same for Fogler. And there you can see Cole Deaver, Kyle Matthews, they're closing in on this group. They're not closing in on Michael Norman, which is what Kyle Matthews needs. Kyle Matthews in a must-win situation as well It's going to be 10 laps to go here at Rockingham. And Michael's advantage didn't get cut down between himself and Fitzwater that lap. It was 2.5 seconds from Norman back to Boland. Now with Fitzwater moving into second, it got cut down by a tenth. So not only did Fitzwater get around Destin Boland, but he did close up the gap between himself and the 22. So this is not set in stone just yet for Michael Norman. That last time by, Fitzwater was 0.2 of a second faster. What about this time by? He is a tenth slower. 28.7 for Norman, 28.8 for Fitzwater. Imagine if a caution came out right now. Wow, that would change things up a ton. But the field is quite spread out. Let's see about this time. Michael Norman hits the line, 28.4. That's a good lap time there, even with old tires. Fitzwater was a 28.6. Michael Norman has found something, and he's beginning to grow the gap between himself and now second place Zachary Fitzwater. Destin Boland's dropping like a rock. Fell back to fifth, and now he's under fire from the two S3 Motorsports Chevrolets of Cole Deaver and Kyle Matthews. Kyle giving it a yeoman's try here today. It's almost kind of reminiscent of Ryan Butcher back at Nashville Super Speedway, where he was in a must-win situation and he made his way up into the top 10, just couldn't get to the front. Kyle Matthews' must-win situation today, and kind of almost same situation for him as he started this race from 13th, moved his way up as high as 6th, right now running in the 7th spot. Michael Norman just trying to click these laps away as fast as possible. Fitzwater trying to close in, but he is running lap times much slower than Michael Norman right now. Kyle Matthews now going to move to 6th, getting around his teammate Cole Deaver. He'll now look to see if he can get around Destin Boland. Let's follow up on the playoff situation with Chung, Sanford, and Collins. Laura Chung is now up to 15th. So currently she needs Charles Sanford to be running in 23rd or worse. And Charles is in 17th. In order to bypass Mitchell Collins, Laura Chung needs Mitchell to be running in 25th or worse, and Mitchell is 30th. This is not good for the 33, two-time winner. Right now, Chung would displace Mitchell Collins. Michael Norman right now, out in front, would be displacing Keith Batson. So Mitchell Collins has to pick up, based off of calculations, he has to be running 24th or better before the conclusion of this race. He just picked up 2 spots. He's up to 28th. He's got to finish in 24th or better, though, with Chung running where she is, and she's about to pick up a spot on Jose Mills, moving up to 14th. So that now moves the goalposts a little bit further up for Mitchell Collins to have to finish in 23rd or better. Destin Boland, doesn't look like he's going to advance into the Final Four. As Michael Norman's got almost a full straightaway between himself and second place Zachary Fitzwater. Fogler now under fire from Jesse Turner for third. Kyle Matthews closing in. No way mathematically for Kyle Matthews to point his way in. He would have needed to win today. Turner going to go around the outside to try and make the third position work against Fogler, and it's not going to work for him. As a matter of fact, Kyle Matthews is going to catch him out, and Kyle is going to, it looks like, move into P4. This time by, Michael Norman's going to see the white flag. Well, it seemed improbable for Michael Norman. He started on the pole, but lost the lead 9 laps in. Was drifting back almost outside of the top 10, but then after the cycle of pit stops, he maneuvered his way through traffic, got back to the point, and Michael Norman is now about to pick up his 3rd win on the season and secure himself a spot in this season's championship battle in the finale at Homestead Miami Speedway. Michael Norman goes coast to coast here today at Rockingham. He's going to Michigan to battle for the Duracell Cup Series championship. against, I believe, based off of where they were running at the time, Jack Dunnard, Charles Sanford, and Laura Chung. Going to be 2 veterans versus 2 rookies to battle it out for the championship this season, as Nick Gunther had an engine expire on him there in the closing stages. I don't even think he got around to take the checkers. Let's see, where did they score him? We're waiting for scoring to actually update itself. Looks like Gunther crossed the line, but in the 24th position. And he was running up with a chance of finishing inside the top 10, I do believe. Michael Norman going to be celebrating in victory lane here today. 3rd win on the season for him. That is the 7th win for Michael Norman Motorsports this season. And was in a must-win situation. I'm not certain if we've ever had a must-win driver actually take a checkered flag here in the Duracell Cup Series. This might have been a first. And congratulations to driver 22. Zachary Fitzwater is going to bring it home in 2nd. So, we said it was basically a done deal of him winning Rookie of the Year. Well, 2nd place run here today. I mean, what more can you say? He is definitely showing that he has been the top rookie here in Season 6. Caleb Fogler finishes right behind him there in 3rd. Kyle Matthews, great try there for Kyle. He'll bring it up 4th place, but he is not going to be able to advance into the Final 4 to defend his championship. Still a top 5 run for him, though, and Jack Dunnard, he will be battling for the championship next week as he has another solid playoff outing, bringing it home in 5th place. Jesse Turner, great run in 6th. Reggie Fogelman in 7th. 8th place for Cole Deaver. He kind of faded back a little bit there in the closing stages. Chris Dollerton in 9th, and Destin Boland was leading, fell back to 2nd after the cycle of pit stops, and then almost fell outside of the top 10. And so finish in 10th place. Jose Mills also dropped back a ton there after, I guess he used up his stuff on that run. He'll finish 11th. RJ Bishop in 12th. Nathan Orman in 13th. We didn't talk about Carson Gum all day. He'll get 14th, and Noah Hendrickson completed the top 15. Charles Sanford needed to finish in the vicinity of Laura Chung to ensure that he would be in the Final 4. He gets 19th. Chung finished in 16th. So finishing in 16th place, that means that Mitchell Collins needed to finish 9 positions or better behind Laura Chung, which would have been 25th or better. And Mitchell Collins, I saw, actually lost some spots there in those final couple of laps. Collins is going to end up in, oh gosh, he finished back in 37th. I don't know what happened to him there, but he was, 30th, 28th when I last saw him? He drifts all the way back to 37th position. I wonder if there was a wreck with him or something. Him and Nick Gunther maybe there on that final run. I don't know what happened. But Mitchell Collins, whatever it was there in the closing stages, it took him out of the championship battle. 37 cars finished on the lead lap, 41 cars running. Snyder was the only retiree from the race. Tough break for Keith Batson, 34th. Very much so at the beginning of the race. He was kind of behind the 8 ball, coming in the cut line driver as to whether he was going to advance or not. Kyle Matthews, Mitchell Collins, and Destin Boland are going to be the 4 eliminated and not competing for the championship next week, I believe, just based off of my rough math. Again, do not take anything I say for granted. It may end up being entirely different once the points are reformatted here. You'll see that in just a moment, but I do believe that it is going to be Michael Norman, Jack Dunnard, Charles Sanford, and Laura Chung that will battle it out for the championship. 2 Chevrolets, 1 Ford and 1 Toyota, so very democratic there amongst the manufacturers, and for all 4 drivers looking for the very first championship of their career. We have never had a rookie win a championship outside of Stephen Pollard III and Caleb Fogler last year, but that was kind of a special case. But we've never had a full-time, let's put it that way, a full-time rookie win the championship. Dunnard and Chung could become the first full-time rookies to pick up a championship trophy in their first full-time season. We'll have to wait and see. Michigan International Speedway is where it will be determined next week to who is going to be the Season 6 Duracell Cup Series champion. Hope you guys enjoyed today's race here from Rockingham. If you did, be sure to give this video a like, subscribe, and part with the crew today. We have shown you your full finish results, and we are about to show you the point standings. Bear in mind, even if Michael Norman is below 4th in points, this victory locks him into the next round, so keep an eye on who the top 3 drivers points-wise are that would be joining him in that championship battle. Until next week, I've been Seth Cole. You've been watching another broadcast courtesy of NNSCRA TV. Who are you rooting for the championship next week? Let us know in the comments down below. Until then, I will see you guys next time at the Michigan International Speedway. You've been watching another broadcast courtesy of NNSCRA TV offline racing at its best. So long from the Rock.